Welcome back. I'm Jeff Hicks, curator of the Strange As It Seems archives and grandnephew of John Hicks, who created Strange As It Seems back in the late 1920s. For today's episode, let's glide into the weird and wonderful world of ice skating. Digging through the family archives, I came across this folder. All the comic strips on ice skating from the 1930s, 1940s, and 50s. I opened it up and came across the first one from 1930. Now, the difference between Ripley's Believe It or Not, Strange As It Seems, was at the bottom of every Strange As It Seems comic strip. My granduncle John Hicks would always write, "If you don't believe any of this, write to the author for proof." So let's go find the proof of why ice skaters do not skate on ice. So we'll break the ice with our first story. A few pages in 1935, I find the Champion family. How about T. Donahue and his two sons, Tim and Joseph? All of them were world champion speed skaters in their day. Or how about 12-year-old Adele Inga? Love this girl. Classed by experts all over the country as the greatest feminine exhibition skater in the world. And at 12 years old, could do a forward somersault on ice. How about that? Here's a picture of Adele doing a forward somersault. Love this article too, with Adele, the picture of Adele skating on her basement skating rink built by her dad, with where her dad printed with the star Sweet Adele printed on the floor. How cute is that? We have the 79-year-old fancy skater Fred Shart from Kelly's Island, Lake Erie, not to be outdone by the 13-month-old Baby Treasure laureate. Check out Baby Treasure, 13 months old. And for proof, the Cleveland Press Silver Skates Ice Carnival, March 10th through 14th, with the number one featured skater in the program, Baby Treasure. We have the human top, Roy Shipstadt, who in 1929 could spin over 160 times per minute, and the pinwheel girl, Evelyn Chandler, who apparently was the first to ever do the Arabian cartwheel and could perform 8 successive Arabian cartwheels on ice, touching only with the tip of one skate. Not to be outdone, of course, here's one from the 1940s, which actually, digging back in the archives back to 1931, there was Cy Hopkins with a 45-pound pack on his back, skated the 250 miles from Bangor, Maine to Boston, Massachusetts in 5.5 days. Why? Just to see if it could be done. You know why you can't tell a joke while you're ice skating? The ice might crack up. Which is also why you should never go ice skating on a duck pond. The ice might quack. And the next year, in 1944, just to show that ice skating wasn't just a sport for white people, my granduncle John Hicks found Mabel Fairbanks, a Harlem figure skater, who could ice skate backward faster than the average ice skater could skate forward. Recognized as the best skater of her race, she tried her first pair of skates on less than 4 years previously. And I love this. Handwritten letter from Mabel's agent, Wallace Hunter, written to Mr. John Hicks on March 2nd, 1944. Dear Mr. Hicks, I saw your speed and reverse treatment of Mabel Fairbanks in the Long Island Daily Press from March 1st. It's wonderful. It's democratic. Thanks a million. Shipstadt had done 160 revolutions per minute. Here in 1946, we have Donna Atwood, the world's fastest spinner on ice, does 288 revolutions per minute. Featured by my grandfather, Ernest Hicks, who took over the comic strip after my granduncle John died in 1944. And a few years later, Grandpa Ernest featured Red McCarthy, ice star who had 50 serious accidents on the ice and suffered 45 bone fractures. Here's the photograph of Red for proof, looking like he's on his way to one of the 45 bone fractures. You know, I went ice skating once, but I got cold feet. And here in 1948, after my grandfather Ernest had died in a plane crash, the comic strip was taken over by my grandma Elsie, who initially started it just by Hicks, featuring Canadian Barbara Ann Scott, who at 10 became the youngest skater ever to win the gold medal award for cutting basic school figures on the ice. When I saw this, I realized that's where figure skating came from. I didn't even know that. Cutting figures in the ice. That's how it began in the first place. Fascinating. And later, Elsie Hicks, putting her name to the comic strip, which she ran for many years through the 50s and 60s. She featured Dick Button, world champion amateur figure skater, first winter sport athlete to receive the James Sullivan Memorial Trophy. And fascinating, the Special Varsity H was also conferred upon Dick Button by the Harvard Athletic Association. And here we have the letter from the Harvard Athletic Association proving that Dick Button had been awarded the Varsity Special H, which was only the third H to be awarded, the first being Bobby Jones, the golfer. Fascinating. And then finally here in the 1950s, the last two, we have Sonja Henning, who became a famous skating star. She seemed familiar to me too. Who became Knight First Class in the Order of St. Olaf of Norway. And then the final comic strip I found in the 1950s answered the question from the beginning: do ice skaters skate on ice? And here we find that ice skating is made possible by the pressure of the skates on the ice, which causes the ice to melt and temporarily provides a thin film of water, enabling the skates to glide more easily, strange as it seems. Other fascinating facts in the world of ice skating. In the 1960s, there was the 1961 World Figure Skating Championships tragedy. A plane crash in Belgium killed the entire U.S. figure skating team en route to the World Championships. It was a devastating event. Deeply impacted the sport and led to several changes in air travel safety and team rebuilding efforts, which echoed the recent tragedy. So many up-and-coming figure skaters tragically killed. In the 1960s, the introduction of the triple jump. Figure skaters began incorporating triple jumps into their routines, and Canadian skater Donald Jackson became the first person to land a triple Lutz in competition in 1962. Not to be confused, of course, with the triple Lindy, which Thornton Mellon performed in diving in the movie Back to School. 1970s, we had the rise of ice dancing, which gained popularity in the Winter Olympics. I remember the British dancers Torvill and Dean, which in 1984, they did the famous Bolero routine. Of course, the Battle of the Bryans, 1988, the rivalry between Brian Boitano and Brian Orser of Canada, where Brian Boitano won the gold, nearly flawless performance. Then the rise of the quad jumps, right? The first quadruple jumps in the 1990s with the Russian skater Alexei Urmanov. And then, of course, the most famous ice skating scandal of all time, Nancy Kerrigan and Tonya Harding. And when the sport was rocked in 1994, when Tonya Harding attacked Nancy Kerrigan, orchestrated by associates of Tonya Harding, drawing massive media attention and becoming a cultural phenomenon. Strange as it seems.